Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and we're back today with another episode of the Phillies playthrough with Out of the Park Baseball 19. I haven't given it up. I think maybe I left that impression, on the last episode, but I still want to continue. It's just maybe with not as much frequency, or what I'm really hoping is I can get through the seasons a little bit quicker. But I've gone through a whole lot since that last episode. The last episode I ended with us getting eliminated in the playoffs, and then we looked at the end of the year winners and award winners, and went through. I guess we went through up to free agency, and since then a lot of things have happened, and that's what we're going to go over today. We've gone through spring training. We're ready to start the season. Had some injuries I'll have to talk about, but a couple of big changes on this team. And this is something, this is a playthrough for me that started with Out of the Park Baseball at 18. So I'm now in season 2033, and the first season I simmed was 2017, I believe. So 17 years is how long I've been in this playthrough. And for the most part, I've been successful lately. You can see since 2028, so the last 5 seasons, we've made the playoffs 3 times, won our division twice. So that's pretty good for the most part. That's a pretty good run. But it feels like in some ways we've kind of reached a plateau, or we've been a little bit stagnant, or we can't get to that next level. And if you follow the playthrough through every episode, you know that primarily that has to do with the pitching. We just having a hard time getting pitching help. But when I get to that point in a playthrough, over all the versions of this game, that it's pretty much true throughout all the versions of this game that I've played, and certainly in the last several versions, if I have a long playthrough, that goes for 10 or more years, if I reach this point, it's either time to step back, make some adjustments, take a hit maybe for a year or two, and do, and just rebuild with the chance of getting a little bit better team 2-3 years down the line, or you just sell off everybody and do a complete rebuild and just start over from scratch. Hope that 3 to 5 years you can build your farm system up and get some really good draft picks and have some superstar type players develop within, say, 5 years, and then you can make your run. I didn't want to go that far, but I felt like, it's time to kind of step back and do some change, make some changes to hopefully get to that next level. And that means this year might be a tough one. We might take a hit this year, but in the long run, I think this is going to be the best thing to do. So, telling you that with that in mind, I made 2 trades in the offseason that got rid of 2 of my best players from last year, and it was primarily I hate to say salary dump, but it was primarily to give us some room in that salary. And the first one I did, though, in some ways I felt like, well, this will probably help the team. But I traded Sean Barge, who has been my starting second baseman for the last several years, and has been for the most part a consistent performer, although I had gotten to the point where I had to platoon him against lefties because his ratings were so bad against lefties. So I threw him out there, and I got this offer from Arizona for Josh Yoakum, who is coming off a great year, 16 wins, a 5.1 wins above replacement. He's been pretty solid the last 3 years, and he's got a couple years left, the way I'm reading it. He's got a couple years left in arbitration. So I'd have him this season and next season, where I was going to lose Barge after this year. So I made that trade, and I thought, I saved about $5 million in salary, I think. Over $5 million in salary. So I like that. Plus, I'm going to have an extra year with Yoakum if he turns out to be a good pitcher. And then the next one the next trade I made was straight up a salary dump, but I wanted to get the best I could for the player I was trading. And the player I got was Dusty Stern, who's now injured, but only for a couple days. He's 25. He had a little bit of upside. He's only played in the majors just a little bit of a season last year, probably a September call up. He's never got as high as Double A. But my scout, his ratings were okay. He gives me some outfield depth, got some good speed, good personality ratings. OSA likes him a lot better. They have his individual ratings pretty high all up and down the line. So he could be a good bench player, I think, for me. But the player that I traded was easily the best offensive player on the team, and that was Josh Ash, who did get some MVP vote considerations last year, and he was coming off a great year in 2031. You can see what he did last year. I mean, 47 home runs, 120 RBIs. His average was a little bit off, and the wins above replacement was a little bit off from the previous year. But yeah, he's a good player. But the contract was almost $29 million for the next 5 seasons. One of those a player option. My guess was at that point in his career, he'd probably be willing to take, he'd be willing to stay on with the team. He'd want to. So I decided to save that salary and trade for whatever I could get. And so I went with the first player that a team would give me that was either still in the minors or had all of his arbitration years left. And that's what I got with Dusty Stern in the trade. And I still think Stern, when he comes off the DL, I'm going to give him some time in the minors, but I think there's a couple of guys on the roster right now that he's gonna help me a little bit better than they would. And just those two trades freed up $45 or so million in salaries. So that gives me hope that if we have a good free agent year next offseason, if there's some good players available, I'll have the money to make those kind of moves, which is primarily what I'm looking for. Now, we've already gone through the spring training. I'll let you see how we did there, which wasn't honestly too bad. We started out losing, I think we were 0-8. So we got off to a rocky start, but we finished 15-13 in a pretty tight National League East division. Almost every team was above 500. This doesn't mean anything. Obviously, I've said that several times before, but I do like the fact that the new lineups, the new players, were playing a lot better as spring training wound down. And I want to look at preseason predictions before we start simming out some games, but this is the 2033 season that we're going to be looking at. New York is still going strong, but it looks like Baltimore has finally started picking up the pace, and they've got a chance here at the playoffs based on these predictions. Plus, the Red Sox are really in the hole, 64-98 for them. I don't know if they've I think they've had a pretty rough run in this playthrough. Let me see, where did I find the history? Yeah, Boston, it looks like they have not had a winning record since 2021. And they've had some years in there where they have lost over, one year they lost over 100. This is a really uncharacteristic bad run for a big franchise. They always have money, so I can't imagine what's going on here, but they have really had a stinking run. I didn't realize it was that bad. But looking at the rest of the predictions, they got Detroit in the Central, Texas Rangers in a tight West. In terms of individual performances, same guys. Kinsler, who's won back-to-back MVPs, is going to look good. One guy, though, I used to talk about this guy all the time when I started this playthrough. Justin Bellinger is still just having a great career. I don't know how you say it. I think based on this is a playthrough that originated with Out of the Park Baseball 18. So he was in the minors, I guess, when that all these ratings were developed. So considering that, he is just I think he's had the best offensive run of any player in this playthrough, bar none. Several years ago, I thought, okay, he's going to start showing some slippage. I think it was maybe this year because 2028, 2029, he was batting like 246, 261, but his production was still there. But then the next year in Tampa Bay, 59 home runs, a 314 batting average, a 9.3 wins above replacement. And then injured a little bit in 2031. And then last year with KC, his a year like he typically has, 44 home runs, 286 batting average, 5.9 wins above replacement. He signed through this year. His ratings are still 4.5 from MyScout, 4.5 from OSA. I don't know how many more years he's going to play, honestly, but he's going to pass, I would think, 600 home runs this year, maybe 1,700 RBIs. The trouble that he would have probably put up some, he would have maybe even threatened for that all-time home run mark, at least surpassed maybe Ruth, had he just started a couple years earlier. But he started when he was 24 in this playthrough, and he was good to go, I think, from that moment on, and he never really had a bad year. The only thing was that injury year of 2026 when he missed about half the season. But other than that, I mean, he has been so productive. Just an amazing career. I can't believe, honestly, when I saw that, even though these are predictions, when I saw the predictions that they had for him, 50 home runs, I was like, how can this guy still be there? But he is. Chris Mercury, who went over from Atlanta, is predicted to have a great year. He was the MVP in the National League last year. And then some pitching here that one of the things I have started picking up on in this playthrough with pitching, the innings pitched are getting less and less. And I think that's making it harder for a lot of these starters to pick up 15 plus wins, or certainly get back to 20 plus wins, because it's been a while, I think, since I've seen a 20-game winner. So not the pitching performances aren't looking all that impressive. But in the National League, the predictions, this is one that's I'm hoping isn't true, but they have us at 65 and 97, and that reflects, those two trades, I'm sure, that we made. But that would be I think that would be the worst record I've ever had in this playthrough if it held true. So I'm hoping not. But they've got Atlanta still strong, even losing Mercury, and they got Pittsburgh having a good year, and they've got San Diego having a monster year in the West. Individual performances, we have no one in either list, and it's the usual suspects. Axe, they think, is going to have a great year with San Diego, and that might be why San Diego is one of the reasons, anyway, San Diego's getting a nod in the West. But Pat Dowdy, they're expecting him to have another great year. This is the guy I needed at second, but sometimes it happens. You gamble on the wrong guy, and I went with Barge, who was good and solid, but Dowdy, I traded away Dowdy, and man, he's going to be a big superstar in this league. Pitching performances, nothing again that stands out. They have one 16-game winner. They've got Nellums and Plyler looking like they're going to compete for that strikeout title, but that's it. Now, I don't think I can look at the off-season center, but we did have a tough off-season with those two trades. I mean, I think we were next to the bottom in terms of the wins above replacement that we lost. And now, going into the regular season, we did have a couple things that happened in spring training, which are a little bit worrisome to start off the year. But our best player, I think, offensively now is Vargas, and he went down with a fractured hand, and he's going to be out for 2 to 3 months. And he's been injured before, but nothing for a really big long-term So I'm hoping that he comes back healthy and that this doesn't impact his overall ratings. Of course, I've got him to sign to that long-term contract. He's really the only offensive player now that I have signed to a long-term contract. And it is long. I mean, it's up through to 2040, so another 7 years, 8 years or so. And we lost Stern, who's going to be coming back soon, but we also lost Vandenhoeven, who had a great spring training. He looked good last spring as well, but I think I have no other option right now but to start him at first. But this is a situation where if those guys like Lockyer, who I'm starting a rookie right now, if those guys don't start showing, some improvement with the money that I have left over from the trades and losing Barge and Ash, a big offensive first baseman is what I might go for in the offseason. But I expect him to come off, and it's kind of odd. He's started all 162 games for 3 years, so he's definitely not been injury prone. So I'm hoping that he comes back and shows me what he was doing in spring training, which I think he was showing some power. He was hitting over 300. But it's going to be tough right now for me at first. I'm going with Lockyer just to see if he can possibly show some of his potential. And then Espinal is somebody that I moved over, and I called him up from AAA, and I moved him over from starter to bullpen. This guy's got some really good ratings. I don't think he's ready to start. His stamina's too low. This last pitch, I think he needs to develop it a little bit more. But he's going to look, I think, really good as a reliever. So he got injured, out for a few more weeks. I expect he'll be on the, I don't know who I'm going to take out of the staff when he comes off, but I think I'll probably put him in the bullpen when he becomes healthy. So that's where we're at right now. We're ready to go with the start of the season. We have a little bit of depth going on too. So we've got some good pitching depth in AAA for sure. And a few position players here, I think, like Herrera, Hellwig, Luther, if those guys, if we needed it, I've got a few guys I can call up from AAA. But in terms of my expectations this season, if we finish right around 500, it would probably be a good outcome, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, I'm not doing a total sell off, fire sale rebuild, but this is going to be a rebuild year. Now, one of the things I am going to do, and this might be a little controversial because I've heard other guys say, there's a setting where you can have it set up so that like fictional players or you don't have to manage the size of the rosters or whatever, and that the players will still develop. But I like filling the teams when the minors get a little depleted. I like filling the teams with fictional players, and sometimes those sometimes fictional players do make your active roster, and I think that's where some players I've seen, they don't like that, but I treat it like, hey, they were minor league free agent, they were discovered out of nowhere, they walked onto the team, whatever. I feel like if they make it, I'm fine with that, but I just don't like the, what was that, the Eastern League, I think it was. I don't like them having 12 total players on that roster, and I feel like filling it up with fictional is probably the best way to make sure that your starters are getting, the guys who need to develop, they're getting the play time they need, but not too much play time. Because I've seen it several times where the guys just get overplayed if there's not enough players on the roster, and that impacts their ratings. So now we're going to do Clearwater. That's the A+, Florida State League. And I don't know. That's just been my experience. So if anybody else has a different experience, just let me know in the comments. But that's primarily my reason for doing this. Is don't I don't think the AI handles an incomplete roster in the minors as well as it should. I guess is what it boils down to. And so I have seen several times where, your best prospects just get used up and they're not able to develop the way they should. I think I'm going to call him up. I know he's probably ready for AAA, but he's 22. Yeah, I'm going to put Danny Byrne up too. He's looking good. So, is there anybody down here I can call up just to make sure? Jorge Castillo. Yeah, he's looking good too. Call him up. And Zamora hasn't played in short A yet. I'll give him some time. All right, so a lot of stuff to do, I know, before we get started, but let's go ahead. We're going to play through a few games here and see how we start out the season with that new roster, new lineups, new pitching staff. This gets me every year, but I usually just, it's probably going to be Eddie Tipton as well. No, who else? Kirk Catula, Juan Marmelo, Maddox Lockyer. No, he's not on there, so put him on 40. Let's see if that does it. And we're opening up, I think it's interesting enough, we're opening up against Cincinnati, who I've got going in that other playthrough, and we lose 4-7. And more than likely, that was our new pitcher, Lockyer, who was going. So who were we pitching against? Lintner? No, it was, Yoakum, sorry. Not Lockyer. Didn't look too great in his first outing for us. Cameron, Tennessee hit a home run. Good first game for him. I'm hoping that he develops a little bit. His contact, though, is pretty low. Good to finish at third baseman. I think it's time, obviously, for him to get that starting job, but a little bit worried about what he's going to do. So, Dusty Stern, I'm going to put him on. Let me see what his injury history, see how long that one lasted. Yeah, it was 2 weeks. I'm going to put him on rehab assignment. Well, I don't have to worry about that. I can just put him down to, because I don't think the AAA is going to start for a while. Let me see when their schedule picks up. Lehigh Valley. They start the 7th. I would like to get him some play time and see what these other guys are going to do before I call him up. And while Cincinnati's wanting to trade the guy we just lost to, and he is a good-looking pitcher, hasn't had too much success in terms of earned run average with him, but I wonder what they would take. He's a lefty, though. Not that that should matter with those kind of numbers, but if we discuss this trade, I wonder if there's anything that they would take. Like Bobby Austin. Would they take Bobby Austin? Yeah, they won't take him. I don't know. I don't think he's worth gutting the team for. But so second game of the year coming up, and it's another loss, 2-5. So not a good start. 0-2. Catula was 2 for 4. Kevin Cox had a good game with a home run. McSparren lost. And McSparren, honestly, he looked really bad in spring training. I hope that he's not taking steps back. I think it's probably a little bit of a stretch to have him as your second or even first starter in the rotation, and maybe that's what he's starting to feel. I hope not. And Boston picks up a player. Looks like they may need all the help they can get, but that's not a really good signing if you ask me. $10 million for a guy who's already wrecked. So here's the last game against Cincinnati, and we win 6-4, 7-4. Sorry. So finally get a win. Let me take a look. Cincinnati got a pretty decent catcher there. He was still available, although he's fragile. And weekly power rankings, we're pretty far down there, 22nd, but it's just first 3 games of the season. Catula has looked pretty good, considering he's never played above triple or double A. He looked really good in the minors, is why I called him up, but he's now bruised wrist day to day. He's got some speed, good defender. Marmolejo is, once I traded Barge, I picked this guy up. Paid him quite a bit, honestly, for a 2-star, but he's got some good individual ratings. Danny Yu picked up the win. Austin his first save. I want to look at the waiver wire. I figured there was some guys that were going to still be there. Here's a good-looking left fielder from Baltimore. Good speed, great contact. Good against really, he bats and throws right. He's good against both sides of the plate. He's probably going to strike out some, but when he gets on base, he's going to, he's coming off a season last year with 152 hits, scored 84 runs. I'm not sure why they would let him go. Another center fielder here with some pretty good ratings, but he's oh, this is potential. I'm sorry. That's why. So he's still 2-star with some pretty good individual ratings. If you needed just a backup guy, he's okay with being a bench player, so he would be a good pickup for some guys. I don't know that I'm going to. I don't know if I'm going to attempt to sign him, though, myself or claim him. Pretty decent looking bullpen pitcher here, but I was just interested to see what was out there in free agents and the waiver wire right now. So the biggest player is going to be this closer, who's a 4.5-star closer. He's fragile, though, and he's got some terrible personality ratings. I would avoid that. And a few guys, that if we start having injury problems, some infielders, outfielders here with some good individual ratings. So there's a lot. Honestly, there's a lot left. Jeremy Riley's still out there. And he was, I got to say, he was just a really good backup for me the last 3 years. And I'm going to keep an eye on it, but if Lockyer can't get the job done at first, and he's hitless so far this year, if I'm starting to have problems at first, I may go back and pick him up again just to give these guys some development time, because Lockyer's never played above Double A. He really needs to be back in Triple A getting some development. It's a lot to ask with the ratings that he has, to bring him up right now. But let's get started in week 2 at New York. And we're shut out 0-2. And Carvante, nobody picked him up, so he's going back to AAA. Problem with he's a 2-pitch pitcher, and he's got good stuff, but it just not. I'm really to the point where, starters need 4, and even your bullpen guys need 3 pitches, even if they're not 3 solid pitches. They need 3 pitches to really be good in this game. And he looks great in AAA. He did have a really good run the first time I called him up, but the next time I called him up, he was just terrible. And I think it has to do with the fact that you put these guys in the majors, 2 pitches is not enough to really compete. So who shut us out here? Perez had a good game, but and Lockfield pitching in that bottom of the rotation now. He didn't look too bad. He's still a 3-star pitcher, but it was a combination there from them. Unzueta, who's a 3-star pitcher. That second game, Zach Prieto. No. And we lose a tough one, 5-6 in 14 innings. Perez still hitting pretty good. Ochoa had a good game. Mejia, Tennessee, Arenthal. Cantelme didn't pitch too good. And Cantelme has really taken a step back in the offseason. He's now a 2.5-star pitcher. His ratings didn't really improve at all over the offseason. So now we're going to the last game against New York. Let's hope we can salvage something. And we do squeak out a 3-2 win. And looks like Detroit wants to trade me Owenby. He's a great pitcher. In terms of strikeouts, he's had a good run, but I don't think I want to risk it on him. So 3-2 win. Offense is looking okay up and down the line here, looks like. But Yoakum pitched a solid game, but didn't get the win. Austin got his second save. Now we're going to be home against Miami. Win the first game big, 8-3. So we're back up to 3-4. Ochoa, another home run. Kevin Cox looking pretty good. Lockyer had a good game, 2 for 3, drove in a couple. And McSparron picked up his first win of the year, 5 innings, just 2 earned runs. And there's a day off there, and then we finish these next couple games. Lose the next one 2-6. And this is an interesting development too. Lupe Camacho was more than likely the biggest free agent bust I've had in quite a while. He was going to be a starter. He was a 3-star pitcher when I signed him. He was injured for most of the year last year, 9 months, went out in May. When he came back, his ratings were terrible. His control down really bad. He's a 1.5 star now. And I sent him to AAA, and now he's injured for the next year. And unfortunately, I'm on the hook for this because there's no option years here. So I'm going to have to either wind up releasing this guy, hope he comes back and can at least give me some kind of maybe a lefty specialist in September. But now he's going to be gone for the year. So that was a big, big bust for me. And let me see. Did I put him on the DL? Yeah, he went on automatically. And we lost this game 2-6. How did we lose it? Cameron, Tennessee had a good game. His 3rd home run. Ochoa's looked pretty good so far. On pace for 41 home runs. But Danny Ude really got hammered. 6 runs in 4 innings. Bullpen looked okay, though. So last game of the series, we lose 3-0. So I don't think we haven't won a series yet. We're 3-6 on the year. And Lockfeld 7 1/3, just 3 runs. Pretty good game for him. You know, he's had 2 back-to-back decent starts. But players of the week now, we're finally getting to that. John Mullen for Oakland in the American League, and Gabriel Guerrero, who went to Atlanta. They signed him for a big contract for a couple years. I don't know if they're going to get the full value of that because he's so injury prone, but he's off to a great start. And I'm pretty positive this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer in this playthrough. He's had a good career, mainly most of it coming with Cincinnati. So weekly team rankings, we are 26 out of 30. So bad start. Let me see if I can get through one more week here. and we're going to be starting off against New York. We win at home. We win the first one 9-3. Catula, another good game. Kentelme picked up his first win, pretty solid. And Justin Bellinger, 5-hit game. So we're now 4-6. Second game, lose 0-3. So I don't know. We haven't won a series yet, and we just had 2 hits in this game. Joachim pitched okay, 9 strikeouts in 6 innings, just 3 earned runs, but our offense struggling here. And last game, let's see if we can win the series. Finally, we won a series, 9-4. Catula, another good game. Perez, good. Kevin Cox, second home run of the year for him. Ochoa looking really good, and he's now the veteran of this team until Vargas gets back. So it would be nice to have him have a good season. This is going to be the last year probably he's going to be on the team. I don't know that I'll re-sign him, but he's on pace to pick up that 300 home run. That would be nice for him if he gets to that level. And the pitching, McSparin, a solid game to get his second win. And Bellinger hits home run number 600. And so we got 4 games against Colorado. I'm going to finish this series and then probably end the episode. Win the first game 4-1. Big injury, though. In Clearwater, Josh Jenkins out for 4 weeks. Marmolejo, pretty solid game at the top of the order. Cameron, Tennessee has looked pretty good so far, too. Danny Yu came back, pitched a good game to get the win in this one. Austin, 4 save. He's on pace for 50, and he's yet to give up a run. Kevin Maitan out. He's a pretty big player in this playthrough. He's had some good years. So it looks like a lot of these, we're seeing some free agent signings too. So some other teams with injury problems are probably going to raid that pool. So it's not going to stay there forever. Second game against Colorado, lose 4-9. Kevin Cox, another good game though. Not much going on there offensively. And Lockfeld, pretty bad outing for him. Six runs and 5 1/3. And then third game of a 4-game series, we lose 1-3. Espinal's ready to come off. I'm going to put him in a rehab assignment. Perez, a good game, but not much else. Tennessee 2 for 4. Kentelme pitched okay, though. 2 runs in 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, just no offense in this game. And so last game of the series, let's hope we can win this one and split it. And we do 8-4, so maybe we're playing a little bit better. We're a record up to 7-9. Nottinger, a big game, 4 RBIs in that one. Perez 2 for 5. Skylar Dutch, a good game. And Joachim picked up, no, he didn't pick up the win. 4 runs and 5. So he hasn't really been the player I was hoping he'd be, and I didn't really expect him to be a dominant pitcher. I mean, I thought, like everybody on this team, he's at best a mid-rotation starter. But let's take a look at the news, and then we'll take a look at the team so far. Players of the week, Justin Bellinger, 4 home runs, on pace for 40+, got that 600th of his career. National League, Chris Moody in Atlanta. And for power rankings, we are moved up a little bit. We're 20th. And I'm going to look at waiver wire real quick. Few players out there if you need some bench filler. And then standings, Yankees, Tampa Bay off to a pretty good start. Kansas City off to a great start, 11-5. With the White Sox and Indians also playing above 600. Oakland off to a good start in the West. The Braves, though, 12-3. So after that World Series win last year, they may be the team to beat again. Chicago Cubs, 10-5, good start. San Francisco, 12-5. Pittsburgh, who was picked to win the Central, they're off to a 3-12 start. In terms of individual performance, some guys still showing up here, like Austin Murphy. He's been in this playthrough now for a long time. He's off to a hot start. Zach Owenby, who was offered to me in trade, or at least they were discussing trade from Detroit, he's leading the league in strikeouts. And then in the National League, it looks like we don't have any players showing up, but let's see if there's some of the guys I traded away having a good year, like Justin Lewis, who I let go in free agency. He started off pretty decent. Ian Plyler starting off pretty good too. 3 wins, on pace for 27. And that's about it. We're definitely rebuilding, but at the same time, you have to remember, or at least I have to remember, we have 2 pretty important players here on the DL, and Vargas now out for another couple months. So it's going to be touch and go. If we can stay at around 500, that might be good while they're gone. That might be a pretty good thing. Looking at team statistics, offense is really not doing what it's typically been doing, so that's where we're struggling. Bullpen has looked good, starters not so much. So that's the never-ending struggle continues. Not doing too good defensively either. So we'll have to play it really tight this year, and I'll probably keep going offline until maybe All-Star break, sometime like that, see how far we've come. But the big thing for me is what happens in the offseason is going to say whether I'm successful or not in those trades that I made and doing the moves that I've done, because we have very little to worry about in terms of upcoming free agents. Not any big players. I do know that Mejia will probably need to pick up a catcher somehow after this year, but the rest, no big deal there. And we're going to have some money to play with. And if we get some good free agents available, my goal is to snatch them up this year and hopefully build a team that's going to get to that final World Series level. But until the next episode, appreciate you watching and sticking with this series. Hope you still like what you're seeing and hope you agree with the moves I make. I think, like I say, sometimes if you've been playing through it a lot, and this happens in the majors too a lot, but if you've been stuck at that same level for several years, sometimes you have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward, as they say. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next episode.